Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Aiden, from Cartoon Apocalypse. Welcome back to Turner Tuesday. Now, this week we have a video about the education system on Elaria. Now, this is going to be very similar to the government as in the format of this video because it's basically we're just answering a bunch of questions about the education system. Timecodes will be down in the description below, so make sure if you want that you go check it out, I guess. I don't know. As far as what we'll be doing next week, we're going to be doing magic, and this one will be interesting. So yeah, the first thing that we cover is going to be just a basic summary of what we sort of already had established about the education system, so here's that. And we did sort of previously establish sort of what we wanted the education system to look like. We said previously that we wanted it to be fairly similar to the US school system, and for people outside of the US, I don't know how different it is. It's basically just a standard education. So first through like 8th grade in Elaria, well, I guess we have it 9 to keep with the theme of 9 here. But basically 1 through 9 would just be standard education, so everybody's required to take math, English, like science, stuff like that. So there's going to be like the core stuff that everybody has to learn. It's not very specific. And then for the last couple of years, which I don't know if it's like what it's going to be called or anything, but the last couple of years is going to be a specific topic to study, and they're going to keep one teacher throughout all of their years of study. So it's like, for example, Luna and Blake. Well, I guess Luna's a bad example because I think she switched out of a different class. But like other people in Blake's class would have Blake for all 2 or 3 years, however long his class runs for, and then after that year is over, then Blake will get all brand new students for 3 or 2 years or whatever, and then that's how it's gonna work. So it should be interesting. It'll be similar to college for the last couple of years, even though like in the US, it will have been like the amount of time that a typical high school degree would have taken, except they do more. So yeah, I don't know. That's just sort of what we established before, and that's basically what this describes here. Alright, so this is the last cut in between a couple of different things. And so basically from here on out, we're just going to be answering questions on this sheet. So here's this. Schools should be government owned so that the king has most power. Certain companies could invest money in those schools, specialize in companies' line of work. So you think, so maybe it's all run by the government, but there are specific companies that sponsor schools. Would that be better? I think that might, I mean, as far as the king and his, like, he wants to make sure that everybody is learning the right stuff. So actually that might make sense, because if the government is owning the schools, that means that they make the curriculum, and in that they can specifically say, they can tell what to teach the kids versus a private school, which might be like, well, we're not government owned, we're not controlled by the government, so we will just, you know, say something that the king might not like. And so maybe that would work better. And so instead of, oh, you know what? Why did I do that? I meant to do this. There we go. Yeah. Government run, but sponsors from companies. Okay. Does everybody get the same quality of education? So basically you're asking if some schools are better than others because they're funded more. And since they're all run by the government, except saying that they're run by the government's a bad thing, they are all tied to the government in some way. I think that each school, there's not like there's a school that's better than another school in general, especially for like the 1 through 9 years. Yeah, the 1 through 9 years, that is just, it just basically comes down to where you live. I think the curriculum for 1 through 9 is going to stay the same. Every school, everybody learns the exact same stuff, it's consistent. It's just a matter of where you live and where the closest school to you is. I think that's fine. But as far as like the trade school stuff, that's when things are like, well, what's going on with that? Because I mean, obviously there's going to be different courses. But I think as far as this question goes, I think everybody, as far as 1 through 9, everybody gets the same quality of education. There's not going to be one school that's ultimately better than another school. It's just, you know, you go to whatever school is closest to you at that point. And that's not to say like sports. There's obviously going to be some sport, if we do choose to include sports in the education system, there's going to be some schools that are better at sports than others, so then maybe you'd want to go to that one. But as far as education goes, I think education should stay pretty well rounded throughout all of the school. Going to trade school is training you to work in the trade that you want to work in. That was a mouthful. So, for example, there would be a trade school there wouldn't be a specific trade school maybe, but maybe there would, depending on, like, if there's a company that sponsors, like the company that runs the ships that go across the islands, maybe that company has sponsored an entire school, like an entire trade school. And so that sponsored company or that sponsored school is training people specifically for that company. And that company is going to have a bunch of different things. So they're going to have the magic users who actually control the boats, and then they're going to have people who control the docks, and then they're going to have helpers and waitresses on the boats and stuff. So maybe they have an entire school for people who are like, yes, I want to go work for this specific company. Maybe that specific school is for that specific company. So maybe it's like there's no length of time for the school days. It's just what the teacher has planned for that day. And if you get done with everything that you had planned for that day, actually, I sort of like that. What about this? Okay, everybody is required to go to school for at least 1 hour a day, and maybe 4 days a week, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We can have Friday off. Everybody is required to go, and everybody has the same start time all across the world, all across Elaria. So, say for example, everybody goes to school at 8 o'clock, and that's the bell time. That's when it starts, okay? And then everybody has to stay there for at least 1 hour. That's pretty simple. But for example, doctors, they're going to take up more time because that's a huge field that there's a lot of stuff to cover. Just, it's intense. So, they might end up staying there for 5 hours a day. Whereas, I don't know, a night, maybe the only thing they had planned for that day was practicing some magic. And so they're done in like 1.5 hours. Then they're just like, okay, everybody can go home. I think that's awesome. Maybe there's a required internship and you have to spend this amount of time. Maybe there's like a set time. So maybe it's like 1 hour a day. But you could say that's pretty unrealistic because it's like, well, you're going there for 1 hour to an internship. It's like, well, that's not hardly enough time to do anything. So most people probably break it up to between 2 days. If it's 7 days a week, 1 hour per day, then some people probably do 3 hours a day, one day, and then 4 hours the next day. And it's like they've completed their internship quota for the day. But what are the monthly exams for though? It's like standardized tests that count towards something more than school. Okay. The monthly exams is for the students to show off what they've learned and how they have progressed. So how the US school system does it is they don't have like they have like standardized tests, but it's not like one monthly test every month on the same day and whatever. What this would be, it would be a specific time. If it's a written test, fine. that's what it is for that month, but it's not always going to be a written test. It's a lot of the time it's going to be a one-on-one between you and the teacher, and they're just going to be asking you some questions like, what have you learned so far? And in the case of a knight, I'm going to go back to the dagger example. If they've been doing daggers, the knight teacher is going to be like, okay, let's have a spar with, wooden daggers or whatever. And so the teacher is going to be like, okay, I have now gained an insight as to how my students are doing. And so they can say, okay, well, this student needs a little bit more help in this area, whereas this student over here is doing just fine, so let me focus on this student a little bit more and this student a little bit less. So it's not like they're actually being graded on the exams, it's more for the teachers to see how well the students are doing in their class. Does that make sense? And at that point, then the teachers can be like, okay, do I need to punish the student and give them a worse grade? I don't know how grades are going to work, but should we punish them a little bit for not trying as hard or not doing as well because they are far behind the rest of the class? Or are they trying hard and I just need to focus on them more? It's more for the teachers to see how the students are doing versus them just giving an exam and being like, okay, well, here's your grade. It should be on the teachers to actually be the ones who are like, this student is qualified to go into this field. The teachers on Elaria should be good teachers, not just teachers who say, here's what you need to know, here's the test, you failed or you passed. Teachers should actually be teaching, and the teachers should be the ones who are qualified to say, this student is well enough to work in this field. Okay, I think as far as the this goes, I think the school should be pretty big because there are tons of different majors, and so I would think that it would have to be pretty big. Huge. Okay. And I think it should be broken up into multiple buildings. Like if there is one course that the school specializes in, but they still offer other courses, like maybe that main course gets an entire building. Plus, there would be like a gymnasium building, like a combat room building, a magic training building. So I think definitely, yeah. This is important because here's the thing, right? If the teachers are assessing your ability and they are the ones, like the school system and the government trusts the teachers to be fair and to actually teach. And I mean, sure, they're gonna have maybe some sort of curriculum, but it's not like it's super strict. Because the teachers get more freedom, because the teachers are required to actually teach and stuff, they have freedom to teach how they want to teach. And obviously the teachers are gonna have to pass a teaching test to make sure that they can actually teach well and stuff like that. As far as how you graduate, I think it's just based on the teacher. Like the teacher's like, okay, yeah, you're good. Or the teacher's like, okay, no, I think you need to stay back another year. You have some work to do. And, everybody just trusts the teachers because it's a very, I think in this world it should be a very respected job because they are the ones raising the future kids. So I think it should be like a highly respected position. Okay, here's an interesting idea, actually. What if there were two branches of classes, right? One class that started earlier in the morning, and that's your main major. And then there's a secondary class, so say, for example, teaching, and that's a second branch. Maybe there's a maximum to how much teachers can teach. So maybe there could be a maximum of 6 hours because at that 6-hour mark, the secondary classes start. So then you could be taking two different majors at once. So history and then later on in the day, teaching, education. So that would solve that issue and it would still give you the flexibility to learn what you wanted. So if there was other things like history and folklore, it could be like that. Or I think for history and folklore, it makes more sense for it to be like like a 2-part class. So for 2 years you're taking history, and then like for 1 or 2 years you're taking folklore. After that, same teacher, and it's basically an extension off of the previous class, but it's not mandatory for you to take both. You just get a history major if you stop at the history, but you get a history and folklore major if you stay through the folklore. Yeah, that way if you don't like history, you don't have to be a history teacher, but if you wanted to be a history teacher, then you still can, and it's not like it's going to take you like if getting a history major takes you 2 years and becoming a teacher takes you 4 years, it's not going to take you 6 years, it's only going to take you 4 years, because that's the longer major. Per day, 1. The second is optional. Teaching and other classes that go with the major. With the main major. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy, you could leave a like and subscribe for more content similar to this, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.